I'm the recycling program coordinator here at Rhode Island Resource Recovery, and we're going to be doing a tour of our materials recycling facility today. And I want to point out right over here where the journey to the recycling facility starts. This is our scale house. What happens here is the trucks that bring your recycling have to go over a scale. They're weighed on the way in and they're weighed on the way out, so we can determine how much recycling is coming from your town. Now we do dual stream recycling here in Rhode Island. That means we separate our commingled bottles and cans from all our paper and fiber. So sometimes towns will have trucks that just bring one type of material through. They're weighed once on the way in, once on the way out. Other times trucks have split compartments, so they're actually carrying both materials. That means that they have to go ahead and do that twice. They have to get weighed in and out twice so we can determine how much fiber material is coming in and how much bin or mixed recycling is coming in. So that's where the journey begins. Now we're going to go inside. This is our materials recycling facility. It's about 75,000 square feet and it's one of the largest facilities in the So we have these computers all donated from Apple for the students to use, and they just have a couple basic recycling games on them.
Oh, really?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The goods. And when we bring the kids in or the students in, they usually stay here in our classroom for a while and just learn the basic do's and don'ts of recycling, why we do recycle some things, why we don't recycle other things, things that they can do to help make the process run more smoothly by following the rules. And they have an opportunity to play with some of our displays and our games that show the importance of recycling. For example, we have a game that shows how much energy it takes to make new aluminum from virgin materials versus from recycled materials. So they're actually pedaling a bike and they can feel the difference in the energy that's required to do it. We have games that help them learn to sort recycling. And this is actually one of my favorite things in the recycling facility. It's done by RISD students. And it shows a typical family of 4 for a month. If they didn't recycle at all in Rhode Island, this would be a typical, what we'd see on their curbside, about 6 trash bins full. And as you can see, there's a lot of things that are in there that could have been recycled. So now if we look at the other side of the exhibit, it says, okay, what if they did use their green bin and their blue bin to the max? And what if they did separate out their leaf and yard waste, even do some backyard composting? Then they're down to 2 cans. That's all that they're sending to the landfill, and all of this stuff is getting recycled or composted in some way. So it's a great visual display of the impact that a family of 4 can make just by following the rules.
That's wonderful. Wonderful.
So they spend some time in here, and then they go up and get to see the facility from a bird's eye view, really, but we're going to get to go inside. Okay, so we're going to move from the education center here on inside into the recycling facility so you can get a better sense of the process of what happens to the materials when they get here. Like when I said when the trucks come in, they have to separate the materials, the fibers, from the blue and green bin commingled materials, the bottles and cans. So we're going to see 2 separate sides of the facility that is built to handle those materials separately. The one for the blue bin cans and bottles and such is much more complex than the paper because there's just a lot more differences in the material types. You'll see how it's sorted. So some of the things to keep in mind as we look is to realize that we want to recycle as much as we can, and we want to get everything in this facility that belongs here, not in the landfill, but at the same time, we also don't want things to end up here that belong in the landfill. So preparing your recycling, knowing the rules, and just following them to a T as much as you can actually makes this whole process much more efficient, much more pleasant for the workers and for the operations, and it also makes more money. It makes it more efficient economically. And any profits that we make here at the materials recycling facility are split, and half of them are given back to the cities and towns in Rhode Island, relevant to how much they have contributed to our recycling. So how much tonnage has Jamestown brought here over the course of the year in proportion to other cities and towns, and that's how that money is given back. So we're having a good year and we're having profits and things are running more efficiently. That's actually good for your wallet too, not just for the environment. So those are some things to keep in mind as we walk through the facilities. Here we go. So at this point, this is when our workers on the tip floor are looking for any big contamination, any materials that blatantly do not belong in that green recycling bin that ended up here. And they're pushing it through the bulldozers push up and over in a different direction. So that's our first line of mechanical separation. And a lot of it gets down to the sorters here. And the sorters are actually told during their shift or every given period of time what materials they are looking to grab out and separate out from the mix. This material continuously flows, and they might be just doing the cardboard, they might just be doing the mixed paper, they might just be doing newsprint. So those are our three big basic types of paper that we like to see separated out. And what you'll see next is where they're picking it out and dropping it down, it's going into cages that's going to be prepared just that material, just that cardboard, just that newsprint to be baled. And that's the next one of our balers. So what you saw with the people throwing down different materials into the cages, the next part is for those materials to get squished down and compacted as tight as possible and put into these cubes that you see actually popping out here one by one, wired up, and they're called bales. And this is the way that we prepare the recycling for transport to their destination, where the actual recycling of the material into a new product takes place. So we don't do that here. We only process the material and get it prepared for recycling. So that happens here.
Great.
So they stay here, I would say not more than 24 hours before they are taken and they're shipped out. And we ship our recycling in North America, but all over the world as well. So we have some clients in Rhode Island, we have some in Massachusetts and New York. We also send a lot of paper to China. We also send some to Mexico, to Canada. So it's local when it can be, and global when it needs to be.
Wonderful.
You'll notice with the finished bales, you'll notice that these look pretty much like cardboard, and those look pretty much like mixed paper, but neither of them is perfect. So you'll see the cardboard, there's still some mixed paper in there, and vice versa. The people who buy our materials from us, and therefore the people who allow us to recycle in the first place, will allow for a certain level of contamination. So they don't expect a bale to come to them and be 100% of what they want, but they expect it to be pretty close. And as long as it's pretty close, it's okay, and they'll give us the same amount of money for the materials. But if it's so contaminated that it's actually reducing the, what they can make from it, then they're going to ask us for some money back. So that goes back to the preparation of recyclables, having things that don't belong in there, and how does that affect the money that we can make on recycling? Because it has to be a profitable thing in order for the state to do it, and it's great for the cities and towns because the money actually goes back to the towns.
Yes.
Recyclables tip floor. This is your tubing material. It all piled up here. The trucks come over on this end, and they're putting it down on the floor, and then we have bulldozers and compactors that are rolling over it, pushing it, and getting it into the system. This is another point of visual inspection for what's coming in from cities and towns. See how much is in there that shouldn't be there. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that, hey, if there's something in my bin that doesn't belong there, does that mean that none of my recycling gets recycled? It all ends up in the landfill? That is not true. Now, I won't say it never happens, but what would have to happen in that scenario, a truck would come in, they would tip on the floor, and it would just be more contamination than recycling. So more things in there, there might be big bulky things, dangerous things that end up in the bin, and when the guys visually inspect it, they say, no, this is beyond the point for us to even process safely and efficiently in the plant. And in that case, it would be reloaded, and it would go to the landfill. The city or town would be notified. The haulers on that route would be notified so that they can notify residents. But that is the exception to the rule. Very, very rarely does that happen. We do have workers right on the front end, very protected with gloves, with pickers, with masks, that are picking out as they're shipping material off. It's going up a conveyor belt, and they're going to pick out things that are obviously they don't belong there. Big bulky things that are easy to pull out at the speed that the conveyor belt. So again, this is our first line of annual sorting that takes place on the most frequent questions that we get here at Rhode Island Resource Recovery is why we can or why we can't recycle certain items. And there's basically 4 questions that we have to ask whether we can decide we can recycle something here in Rhode Island. Technically, any substance could be transformed either now or sometime in the future into some other material, but there are certain questions we have to ask to know if we can do it right now. So one of them is there someone out there right now that's taking this material and making it into something new? They're willing to buy the material in the first place. Without that, there can be no recycling. The second question would be, okay, can we process that material in this facility as it is? And as you saw right now, we have mechanical and manual sorting, but we don't have any optical or computerized sorting, which is the type of sorting that allows for recycling more different types of plastics. Those 3s, 4s, 5s, 6, 7 numbered plastics require a different system. So in the current system, we can't do that. If our facility can do that and can process that material, can we do it at the volume that the people who are buying it and transforming it into something new want? And can we do it on the schedule that they want it to? Okay, if we can, then that's another yes. And then finally, the last question that's really important for us is, after collecting that material, bringing it here, processing it, baling it, and getting it out, can we break even? So we're not trying to make money on recycling. We love it when we can, and we like to give the money back to the cities and towns, but we have to at least break even to be able to complete the loop in the process. The final thing I would say, maybe the 5th question, or the 5th important thing, is to remember that with that first question, someone's only out there making the material into something new if there are people that are buying that material that's made out of recycled content. So that's where we come in as consumers. We can close that loop, and the more that we're purchasing things that are made out of a recycled content, the more that we'll be able to recycle eventually. There's a loop there. There's a big process that has to be closed in order for it to work properly. Another thing that I wanted to talk about quickly is, like I said before, there's a lot of things that are in the landfill that belong here. There's a lot of things that people can recycle and don't know that they can recycle in their green bin or in their blue bin that doesn't get here and gets to the landfill, and we want to prevent that. So the basic rules of recycling, if you want to show this.
Sure.
In our blue bin are our bottles and cans, numbers 1 and 2. I'll talk about that in a second. Aluminum cans, tin cans, glass bottles, foil, small pieces of scrap metal, juice boxes, other kind of soup boxes or soy milk boxes, milk containers, bottles for shampoo and conditioner, commonly number 2 plastics, laundry detergent bottles. So these are the most common things that you see. We accept nearly all types of paper into your green bin. So you'll see thin cardboard that goes in there, wrapping paper is something people often don't know can go in there, shredded paper, newspaper, and a lot of times the paper can go in just as is. So for example, with your envelopes that might still have those plastic windows, that's fine. You can throw them right in the green bin. If your papers have staples in them or tape on them, you don't have to fuss with it. It can go right in the green bin. So less preparation may be needed than you thought. The one thing that we would ask is for books that can be recycled, if they're soft cover, they can go right in, but if they're hard cover, we need you to take the cover off before you put them into the green bin. And those are the most common things. Now you'll see some on this diagram, some of the common don'ts, and you'll see styrofoam, which is a number 6, and that doesn't belong there, that belongs in the trash. Yogurt containers and a lot of ice cream or butter containers are usually numbers 5. Sometimes they're different numbers, but they belong in the trash. Plastic caps are a different type of plastic as well. So on your bottles that can be recycled, like your soda bottles, your water bottles, that material can get recycled, but the caps cannot. It's a different type of plastic. And one of the reasons that that's really important, not only because we're not selling that to someone to make into something new, when there's a cap on a bottle, there's usually some liquid left inside. And as you saw on the tip floor where all those materials are, the trucks are crushing that material constantly. So what happens a lot of times is that the liquid that's left behind in the bottles with the caps makes a big old mess, and it makes a headache for the workers. So it again slows down our process and our efficiency if they're always having to clean up after the spills of liquid. And we like to keep them safe, number 1, but we also like to keep our workers happy. So that's something that you can do to make the process more enjoyable, more efficient, and more safe for them. So those plastics don't belong in there. Broken glass. Now we break glass when it comes here, but the reason that we say not to put that broken glass in your blue bin is because the workers that are picking it up curbside, that is a danger and a hazard for them curbside. So we want to keep them safe as well, not just our workers here, but the workers that are actually hauling your recyclables. Some other things, any type of light bulb cannot go in there. Juice boxes they're not boxes, they're bags, and they're metal, like candy bar wrapper, that type of metal, that doesn't go in there. So these are some of the big common things. Now, you might ask why. So I'll give the example of plastics. This is, again, one of the most common questions. Plastics, number 1 and 2, that are bottles and jugs in Rhode Island. And the good rule of thumb is the neck of the container smaller than the base. That's a good way to tell whether it's a bottle or a jug. Now, I've already answered the question of why we can't recycle other types of plastics yet in Rhode Island, but you might ask, well, what if something is a 1 or a 2 and it's not in the shape of a bottle or a jug? Why can't I recycle that? And the reason, again, goes back to our buyers and what they want and what they can easily recycle into something new. So containers that are a different shape, like, for example, a clamshell takeout container that you might get at a restaurant, are molded differently. The process used to mold that plastic, even though it's in the same family of plastics, number 1 represents a family, a resin type, and number 2, a different family. It's in the same family, but because of that molding process, it's actually different. And you can almost sense and see the difference if you hold a plastic Coke bottle and you hold a thinner plastic clamshell. So even though they're the same number, there's still something that's different about them that right now no one is recycling into something new in a way that we can process it, in the way that they want it, on the schedule they want it, and break even. So we answer those. Okay. Another thing that we unfortunately see often, actually every day on the side of our line where we handle the bottles and the cans from your blue bin, is sharps, needles used for medical waste. Now these actually belong in the trash, so if you, for example, are a diabetic and you're using needles on a regular basis, the proper way to dispose of them is to put them in a hard container like a metal coffee can or even a bleach bottle or really thick plastic. Keep them in there, fill them up, close the container, wrap it with tape just to secure it that it's closed, and mark it as sharps. Mark it as sharps just to protect the people curbside, and it actually belongs with your regular trash. Now, you might not believe this, but anywhere from 7 to 12 times a day, the line on the blue bin side of our recycling center has to shut down. Like I said, the workers have an emergency button they can hit when they see something dangerous. So they will hit that when they see sharps, and that happens anywhere from 7 to 12 times a day. So it's a hazard to the workers because they are handling the materials, and then it also slows down the process and the efficiency of the whole operation. So that's a really big one that the workers would love your help in keeping that and getting that out of the recycling industry. And then we tour the landfill. We go all the way up to the top, and they see how it was built, and they see where it's being expanded now. They see we have a power plant, so they see the power plant that we currently have now captures about 65% of the gas from the landfill and turns it into electricity. It's enough electricity to power about 21,000 homes for a year. That's great. And we're building a new one across the street that will be much more efficient and capture close to 100% of our landfill.
So are we actually selling that electricity now?
Yeah, we sell it back to the grid.
You do? Now?
Yep.
From the methane, basically?
Methane's one of the major components. More gases than that. So all the landfill gases.
All the
methane. Methane is one of the big ones. It's one of the ones you smell often when you're here. Yeah. So we'll go up all the way to the top of the facility. Get to the top. It's not the highest point in Rhode Island. It's not even close. A lot of the kids. 862
feet is the highest point.
That's Jericho. So for man-made structures, it's about from the base to the highest point. It's about 254 feet. So you could basically just fit the Rhode Island State House into the landfill. Yeah, for the height, to give you a perspective of it. We're already up pretty high here, so when you're at the top, you're 550 feet above sea level, but that's not all the trash. We don't want people to think that the landfill's that tall or that big. So,
yeah.
They see that.
Well, that's an excellent visual, the State House in the pile of trash.
For the height of it.